Let's talk about the Rockets. It's not a big surprise, but it did become official earlier today. The Rockets announced they're declining to pick up the fourth-year option on head coach Stephen Silas. So his 3-year run as the head coach of the Rockets is over. At a press conference right now, Rafael Stone, the general manager, is speaking with members of the media, and he said they're looking for a coach with a voice that will resonate with their group, saying, I thought it was time for a new one. It had nothing to do with Stephen. Working with Stephen has been amazing. Let's stop the BS there from Rafael Stone. It had a lot to do with Stephen Silas. That's why they want a new voice. They want someone that reportedly will hold guys accountable. The biggest question I have is not, oh, my God, why did they do this with Stephen Silas? We knew this was coming. Should Rafael Stone also have been canned with this decision today? Like, should the Rockets have completely started over with a new general manager and a new head coach? We knew they were going to have a new head coach, but I know there's a lot of Rockets fans out there that also would have liked to have seen a new GM as well.
It could have. They would have had every right to have cleaned house and started over because the results for Rafael Stone are pretty much the same as the results for Stephen Silas, and that's 59 wins and 177 losses in the 3 seasons those guys have been here in Houston. That's a 25% winning percentage. This is a results-oriented business, and the results have not been there. So Silas had to be done, and you had the out because, his contract had basically expired. I feel bad for him. He was dealt a terrible hand. That's been well documented at this point, right? He took the job thinking he was going to be coaching a contender with James Harden and Russell Westbrook, and then within the first few weeks of his first season, both of those guys were gone. So feel a little bit for Stephen Silas, but for Rafael Stone, there's just not a ton of things that you can point to that give you a lot of confidence that this guy is the right guy to lead the Rockets out of this mess that they're in right now. And then you see this story from The Athletic put together by Kelly Iko and Shams Charania that talks about some things we had heard behind the scenes, but they really brought it to a public light and gave more detail about how Rafael Stone was just a looming presence throughout Stephen Silas's entire tenure, that he was stepping in and interrupting practices to try to coach the team. And Silas had to check Rafael Stone one time and basically tell him to never do it again. This guy might be overly involved. He might be stepping into places where he shouldn't be stepping. And once again, Cody, there's not a lot you can point to in terms of draft picks, in terms of trades, in terms of whatever that give me the utmost faith that, Rafael Stone is the guy to fix this team.
The scary part about this is it doesn't look like Rafael Stone's job was ever in danger. We didn't hear any rumblings, any conversations. If there was a conversation from the people that run the Rockets about Rafael Stone's future, it never left the room that those people had that conversation, because it would be one thing to have Stephen Silas be gone and then have Woj or one of these other big basketball reporters be like, yeah, and they thought about moving on from Stone, but there hadn't been hardly anything about Stone. The Athletic details all this stuff, and it doesn't make Stone look good, but that's my big concern is there wasn't even it doesn't seem like a grand conversation about Stone's role with this team changing back to what it used to be or removing him from the position that he's in. That's my big issue is, this one guy, and I think we talked about it on this show before, this one guy's the scapegoat. He was the reason. He was the issue. And it felt like they tried to insulate other people in the organization, from the young players to the general manager to the owner's son who basically runs the team, from any sort of the wrongdoing. And that's what it feels like with this Rockets team.
What has Rafael Stone done? I mean, seriously, you look at the James Harden trade. That was obviously the biggest move that he made. AC, help me out here. To this point, the James Harden trade has netted the Rockets Victor Oladipo, Tari Eason, Ty Washington. Is that it? I know they still have a couple of first-round picks and the right to 3 pick swaps, but that's what you've gotten for James Harden at this point?
Yeah, and look, it's a better return than what Ben Simmons would have ended up being, and it seems like those were the 2 options that were on the table, so you've picked the lesser of 2 evils there for what it's worth. But yeah, given what we've seen in the return for some other stars up to this point, we saw what the Nets got back for KD, and I understand that KD's a little bit better than James Harden. He's significantly better than James Harden. But you got players who could impact your team right away, like a guy like Mikal Bridges, and you have seen nothing even come close to that in the return that the Rockets got.
Yeah, Jared Allen would have been nice, too. And I think about the trades that Rafael Stone made, the guys that he acquired. Who did he bring in? Who were his 2 biggest trades? Christian Wood and KPJ. 2 fan favorites around here. Two guys who lived up to all the hope and expectations surrounding them. So those are like the big moves. And Jalen Green, and a lot of this falls on Steven Silas because he's the coach. He's not developing the guys. But Jalen Green and Jabari Smith Jr. Do not look as good as some of the guys who were drafted right behind them to this point in their careers. So it is very easy to be skeptical of Rafael Stone.
100%. And I wonder if having Stone around limits the potential candidates that you might be able to get. Because I think if you just look at the Rockets' job, like, it's an attractive job. Houston's an attractive NBA city. You have a lot of cap space. You obviously are in contention to get a top pick in the draft and what could be a generational player coming out that could be yours. So it's a very attractive job when you just look at that. But these coaches know the rumblings about Stone, how he meddled with Steven Silas. Say whatever you want about Steven Silas. That guy is respected by everyone in the coaching community. People knew Steven Silas' dad. People know Steven Silas the person. I wonder, are you going to be able to hire Ime Udoka? Are you going to be able to hire Kenny Atkinson? Are you going to be able to hire Frank Vogel or Nick Nurse if he becomes available if Rafael Stone is still here? Are those guys going to look at this job and say, yep, that's the job I want? And I think it would have been a lot easier just to have that clean break from Stone because as you went through the moves that he's made, BK, there's not anything I could point to that it's like, yep, I desperately need this guy back as my general manager.
Depends on exactly who does all the hiring. Because if the process involves just Rafael Stone ending up with the approval on the coach, then Rafael Stone's not going to hire somebody that's going to come in here and big dog him and take away his power and take away what he gets to do on a day-to-day basis for the Rockets. But if higher-ups are involved, if there's more people in the organization and you find somebody who is that type of personality or that type of mentality that can put Stone in his place or keep Stone in his place, or frankly, when you hire a new coach with a holdover general manager, there's always the thought that one day you're going to have to pick one or the other if things aren't going the right way. So you have the type of coach that can find the sway within the building to make sure that they pick the coach in a couple of years if things aren't going well, and not the general manager.
Yeah, I still think the Rockets are going to be able to get somebody pretty good. There's only 30 of these jobs, number one. Number two, the Rockets are going to end up with a top 7 pick in this NBA draft, hopefully a top 3 pick in this NBA draft. They've got, $60 million in cap space to spend this offseason. So there are things working in the Rockets' favor here, and right now there aren't a lot of vacancies in the NBA. That could change. Detroit opened up earlier today. Rumblings out of Dallas, and Mavs fans are not happy with Jason Kidd. That's a job that could open up at some point. We might see another one or two across the league come through at some point. But you do wonder, we're not talking about Brad Stevens here. It's okay if Brad Stevens meddles in Boston because he's a really qualified coach who had a ton of success both in college and the NBA. Stone's a lawyer. Right? He's not a former coach. So he's going to have to step back a little bit and allow whoever comes in here to be the coach to actually coach. Like that if you're going to get an Ime Udoka or a Nick Nurse, guys who have a lot of skins on the wall, you're going to need less meddling from the GM. So hopefully that's something that actually happens, because if it's not, this is like a Casario headset thing again, then you might not be able to get the top candidate out there that you really need to get this team out of hell.
The guy I really want the Rockets to hire is Kenny Atkinson. Kenny Atkinson has been in a very similar situation to what the Rockets are in right now. And he did it with a lot less when he was first the head coach of the Nets. And he turned that team with no first-round picks over several years into a playoff team that had a young, exciting core with Dinwiddie, with Jared Allen developing into a really good player, with D'Angelo Russell turning into an all-star level player. And they blew it all up. Obviously, they get KD and Kyrie, and those guys came in and they wanted their coach and Steve Nash. But Atkinson is known for developing young talent. He's a guy I think would be perfect for the Houston Rockets. Ime Udoka would be great if you could look past what allegedly he did away from the court. I'm glad they're talking to guys, or they're interested in guys with previous head coaching experience, because I think the last thing this team needs is to bring in a novice. This team has been so poorly run, and there's so many questions about how poor their, quote, culture is inside the building. Getting someone in there with previous experience, I think, is so important for the Rockets.
Could not agree more. Nurse, Udoka, Atkinson. That's my top 3. I'm not sure in what order I'd put those 3 guys, but if the Rockets ended up with any of these 3 dudes, I'd be satisfied.
Thank you so much for your help in making The Wheelhouse the most viewed Houston sports show on YouTube. If you like our show, then please subscribe to my channel for more daily clips from the show. And of course, tune in each and every day to The Wheelhouse on ESPN 97.5 FM or 92.5 FM from 3 to 7 every afternoon.